First and foremost, we give infinite honor, praises, and glory to the mighty Yahweh, Bashem, Yahushai, Bashem Rakakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders that rule well. And peace and salutations to the brothers pushing this word in truth and sincerity. This lesson is going to go into a few things. The serpent bruising the heel. Waiting upon the Lord, and women. We're going to get on women on this one. So, primarily wives, right? Wives who are in the truth, claim to be in the truth, and we'll get there. We're just going to go precept on precept. First, we're going to read out of the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 31. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Right? Because we're all going to fall short on strength. But you have to wait upon the Lord and you renew your strength. Now, I keep likening this life into a roller coaster. And I heard the perfect precept on the ups and downs, but it's failing to come to me right now. But continue on. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. Right, so the eagles fly above all the prey. Right, they fly the highest. So you'll have the eye salve when you wait upon the Lord. They shall run and not be weary. Right, and they shall walk and not faint. Right, so you're gonna be able to endure. You're gonna be able to endure. Now, so wait upon the Lord. That's the point there. Now we're gonna get into I'll go into Genesis chapter 3. And we're gonna we're gonna hit from the top. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast, right? And I'm reading about in Ecclesiastes, the preacher, which is King Solomon, right? King David's son, which is Yahushua in the spirit. Who can accept it? But the fact is that he called everything vanity of vanities, and men are like beasts, right? And the spirits go all back into the third heaven, right? And there's a time for everything. So the point being, men are likened unto beasts as well. Now read it. That's Ecclesiastes chapter 3. Right, but he said that the serpent was more subtle than any beast. So the serpent is very sneaky, right? And as we go into this chapter, you're going to find out that the woman listened to the serpent, right? And where the man failed is listening to the woman, right? So you got to run your household in decency and order, and put your household in order. Let's see. So it says he made he's my substance beast of the field which the Lord God had made. right? So he's the most sneakiest creature. And he said, and now that's likened unto Satan, right? The beast, the sneaky serpent is Satan, which is the so-called white man, which is Edomites, right? So they rule the world. The hand is given into the wicked. The world is given into the hand of the wicked, right? They cover the faces of the judges. That's Job. I want to say chapter 9:38. Right, so, and he said unto the woman, yeah, had God said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, right? Because they like to talk, right? And a silent woman is a gift from God, and one who goes to her husband for all things. She's not going to be winded by every doctrine. She's not supposed to go to these other nations and people for doctrine, right? When they're listening to other doctrines, they're eating of the fruit of the trees of good and bad, right? So it says, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden. And then the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat of. So when the Lord put a clear depiction between what you can and what you can't do, right? When you're supposed to, Ephesians 5, I believe 25, 28, that you're supposed to treat your husband as you would the Lord, Yahweh, right? Who the world ignorantly called Jesus Christ. When your husband leading in righteousness, if the woman's not doing that, she's not listening to the word of the Lord. It's in the book. And when there's contention or strife, right, then things aren't in order. It's very simple, right? There's an order. The Lord, mighty God, Yahweh, his son, the man and the woman. And then the woman can put the house, the children, and right, the man has to overlook the end all be all, but it's supposed to be an order so your house runs and operates like a fine machine. If not, you can't build, right? When two don't agree, right, if you can't walk together, right, the house who is divided is gonna fall, right? So that's just what it is. Continuing on, it says, but of the fruit of the tree in the midst of the garden, God said, ye shall not eat, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. Right? So she knew, but then it says, and the serpent said unto the woman, you shall not surely die. So instead of what it says in the books, the prophets of old, the Bible, right, and the man saying word for word out the Bible, what it says, then the woman wants to be persuaded by different doctrine. That's not the context. This, instead of what the man of the house is putting down, right, the order, right? So it says, and it's very peaceful when you can have a woman and a man that agree. The unity of brethren, the downfall of your enemies, the love of your children, right? These are beautiful things. But if not, then there's no unity, there's no agreement. You can't love your children. Your enemies take you over. It's not beautiful. And it's very plain, right? The Lord said, make it plain upon tables, so he who hear it can run with it. He who read and understand can run with it. For God doth know that in that day you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be open. Right? So he's telling you, you're not going to die. Your eyes are going to be open. Right? He's being beguiling, sneaky. The Lord told you you're going to die. Right? But just like the Lord told the prophets who prophesy lies and to break laws to the people, that they're gonna get destroyed. They're gonna be least in the kingdom, but now they're gonna get destroyed here on the land of the living. For God do know that in the day you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be open, and ye shall be as gods. So they're making it sound good now, right? And know good and evil. You're gonna know more, right? And what the woman always do, Eve. She want to dig. She want to be all knowing. She want to know more and more, right? She's not content, right? Insatiable, but she has a mouth and she can talk about every single other nation and thing in black and white, but she can't follow her husband, right? She'll follow the serpent because the serpent is beguiling, right? They want smooth words. Verse 6, it says, and when the woman saw that the tree was good for food and that it was pleasant, so all of a sudden it's good, right? Before it was bad. The Lord said it's bad, but now so I just have to hear it's good, and then it'll be good. And a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also to her husband, right? So gullible old Adam, right? But Lord, of course, the Lord made Adam fall, right? He want the prophets to boss up in the end time and stand for him, right? And he did eat, and the eyes of both of them were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves and made themselves aprons. All right, so continuing on. See, and the Lord called unto Adam. He said unto him, where are you? Right, so they're hiding, right? Because they know they did something wrong now. Like two children, right? Hiding from their parents. Right, and the man said, the woman thou gavest to be with me, she gave me of the tree. Right, so he said, continuing on, he said, and the Lord said unto woman, what is this that thou hast done? Right, the Lord God said that to the woman. What have you done, Eve? And the woman said, the serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. So lucky, I see what time we're at. And the Lord said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed. Right, so he cursed the woman, right? And then, of course, because thou hast this, let's see, this is the serpent he's cursing. And the Lord said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed. Right, so you're going to be on your belly, and you're going to eat dust. Right? So, likening unto Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, he's a curse. He's the loss of pigmentation. But more importantly, he's the wicked. Right? So he carries out the evil deeds of the Lord, right? When you don't listen, then you get beguiled by Esau. Here's the point, though. Verse 15, and I will put enmity between thee and the woman. So between the serpent and the woman, enmity. Right? That's like let's get it real fast. It's like a confusion, like a hatred. Enmity. Deep-seated hatred. Right? So there's hatred between the woman and the serpent. Right? But again, wisdom is double to that which is, so you can liken that unto the woman being Yasharala, right? Because Yasharala does not, you're supposed to despise hatred, evil and wicked. But in plain terms, between Esau, Edom, and the woman, there's hatred. But when he's beguiling and Eve want to come up and basically sell your soul, right? Then she will be beguiled. She'll listen to smooth words. She'll partake of that fruit. Right? When she wants to come up and become worldly. And she's not following her husband. She's not having the hegemony. The hedge, the protection. She'll follow every doctrine. She'll listen to people on YouTube, TikTok, whatever she thinks is right, all these fantasies and stuff, right? When the book said, um, don't go into much studies and books, genealogies that edify not and cause strife rather than edification, right? And a husband who's righteous should be teaching that. And then when the woman don't follow, then she's just a wicked woman, and let her depart. The book says, if she don't want to follow you, let her depart. Give her a bill of divorce. That's Ecclesiasticus, right? Because if not, you don't cut off what's enabling you to get into the kingdom. Then you won't get into the kingdom, right? Now the Lord said you two can dwell together even if the other one doesn't agree, but for matters that there's no agreement, no conversation, then you can't win over the spouse because the whole mind is bad. The whole mind, even if a Jake isn't doing what he's supposed to and the wife's trying to win him back, if his mind is bad, he could even say yes, but it mean no in his mind. He's just lying, right? The tongue of the devil. So, here's again the point. It says, I'll put enmity between thee and the woman. So between the serpent and the woman, right? And between thy seed and her seed. So between the seed of Satan and the seed of Eve, right? There's going to be enmity. Again, Yasharallah, right? And then it shall bruise thy head, right? So your head is your mind, your lob. So you're gonna be all messed up in the mind, right? Unless you follow scriptures, which tells you to follow your husband, you're gonna be messed up in the mind. Same as the man. And if the man don't follow Yahweh had to follow Yahweh. He said, not my will, but thy will be done. He didn't have no free will, right? You have to, and there's going to be a plain distinction between good and bad, right? There's not going to be a lukewarm, right? The Lord said, give me any plague but the plague of the mind. Because when your mind's bad, the whole body's sick, right? Head to the tail. Now it says that, and thou shalt bruise his heel, right? Because they're going to be, Jake is stronger than Esau. Jacob is stronger than Esau. So, yeah, when it comes down to fighting and stuff, you can you always see Jake whooping ass. But when it comes down to the gun, and you're not doing what you're supposed to, you fall on the curses. And how you can contend against the Lord's sword, right? Unless you're doing the Lord's bidding, right? Because there's always an order of operation. And I always say this. If you're doing what you're supposed to, you don't got to lift a finger. The Lord going to send angels, protection, someone talking trash, this guy come from the right, knock this guy out. You didn't have to lift a finger, right? The Lord said, vengeance is mine. Right, and then now Adam suffered because he listened to the woman, right? So you got to be a leader in your household. Yeah, you love your wife as you love yourself, but you're not gonna. When it comes to your salvation, you're not. It says you don't. Certain things you don't be ashamed of. You don't be ashamed of the Lord and His commandments.